You know what nobody tells you about the slow unraveling of modern convenience? It's not the big dramatic moment that gets you. It's the quiet dread that creeps in when you realize the freezer's been beeping for an hour, then goes silent. Everything inside starts a slow, soggy death clock. 1 week later, that rock-solid roast isn't just thawed, it's a gray puddle, and your grocery app still stubbornly insists on restocking. That's when you understand that all those digital conveniences, those seamless supply chains, to mean absolutely nothing compared to a simple block of ice or a jar of jam. Your grandparents never panicked over a blackout. They had 9 quiet workhorses stacked in pantries, cellars, and smokehouses, foods that could sit out the worst winter and greet spring tasting like dinner, not desperation. They understood that the real currency, when the systems break down, isn't what's in your investment portfolio, it's what's in your pantry. Today, we're dusting off those 9 forgotten lifesavers. Copy any one of them, master it, and you'll sleep better the next time the world hiccups. Number 1. Root cellared keeper crops. First up, the original cold storage. Root, cellared potatoes, carrots, onions, beets, and rutabagas. Think about it. No electricity, no buzzing fans, no delicate thermostats. Just a hole in the ground, usually 6 feet deep, with a sturdy wooden door. Earth insulates, maintaining a remarkably stable environment at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius, and 90% humidity, exactly what thick-skinned roots crave. This isn't just some quaint historical footnote, this is a highly effective, passive cooling system that still works today, often better than a modern fridge for certain items. My grandmother, bless her pragmatic soul, knew exactly what she was doing. Kept in woven baskets, layered in damp sawdust or sand, those vegetables stayed crisp for 8 months, sometimes longer. Her personal record? A 14-pound cabbage pulled on Easter, long after the last snow had melted, still snapped with a satisfying crunch when she shredded it for slaw. That's not just food, that's a victory. But here's the trick, and it's a crucial one: curing. You don't just yank a carrot out of the ground and toss it in the cellar. Leave your freshly harvested root veggies in the sun for a day or two so their skins can toughen up. This acts as a natural protective barrier, much like a good coat of varnish. Brush off any loose soil, don't wash them. Washing introduces moisture, and moisture, in the wrong place, is the enemy of long-term storage. One rotten piece, my grandmother would say, will sprint through the crate like a wildfire, contaminating everything. So, you check weekly, ruthlessly culling the soft ones and tossing them into the soup pot. It's an act of vigilance, but it pays off in spades. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't have a dirt cellar. And that's fine. You don't need a sprawling underground bunker. An insulated corner of a garage works. A buried cooler in the yard, strategically placed and covered, can replicate those conditions surprisingly well. For you urban preppers, here's a tip that makes people laugh until they realize how brilliant it is. Stack plastic totes on a balcony, packed with damp leaves or straw. The insulation will keep the contents from freezing solid, and you'll be harvesting fresh carrots and potatoes while your neighbors are fighting over the last dented can of peas at the emergency relief station. The beauty of this method is its simplicity and its independence from fragile infrastructure. These aren't just survival foods. They're an exercise in self-reliance, a tangible connection to the land and the seasons that modern life has largely severed. Number 2. Water bath jewel jars. Next, imagine the sparkling rows of ruby jam, amber peaches, and emerald pickles lining your pantry shelves. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's about capturing the fleeting abundance of summer and holding it hostage against the lean months. And here's a critical point. High-acid fruits, jams, jellies, and pickles only need a boiling water bath. No fancy, intimidating pressure canner required for these. This makes it incredibly accessible, even for beginners, and perfectly doable on a camp stove if your indoor gas fails. Grandma was a master of this art. She'd fill sterilized glass jars, wipe the rims with a vinegar-soaked cloth to ensure a perfect seal, set the lids, and then carefully lower them into a speckled enamel canner. The time it took? About as long as it took to drink 2 cups of coffee, savoring the aroma of sweet fruit and simmering sugar. The science behind it is elegant. Sugar and acid act as formidable bouncers, slamming the door on botulism spores and other spoilage agents, effectively sealing summer flavor for 3 years minimum. I've eaten her peach preserves that were 5 years old and tasted like they were put up yesterday. But it's not just about preservation, it's about elevating the experience. Her strawberries in January didn't just taste like summer, they tasted like June. Her secret? A whisper of grated green apple, added for its natural pectin, which firmed the set so no store-bought powder was ever needed. It's that kind of subtle, intelligent addition that separates mere preservation from true culinary alchemy. This method is cheap, cheerful, and incredibly forgiving. It's a skill that, once learned, gives you an almost magical ability to extend the growing season, providing nutrient-rich, morale-boosting food when fresh options are scarce. And in a barter economy, a jar of homemade strawberry jam, bursting with flavor, might just be worth more than gold. People will trade for comfort and taste when everything else is bleak. Number 3. Fermented powerhouses. Third, the bubbling crocks of sauerkraut, curtido, and pickled squash. Now, some people hear fermentation and think spoiled food. And they're not entirely wrong, but they're missing the critical distinction. Fermentation is spoiled, food's evil twin doing a U-turn. It's controlled, beneficial decomposition. It's like turning an enemy into an ally. The process is deceptively simple, yet profoundly effective. Take some shredded cabbage, salt it at 2% by weight, then pound it until its own juices rise up and cover it. Weight it down under that brine, and in 10 days, sometimes less, you've got a probiotic powerhouse stronger than any $60 supplement you'd buy from a health food store. My great-aunt, a woman of formidable practicality, kept a 5-gallon crock on her back porch year-round. Winter nights would skim the surface with a thin layer of ice, but the kraut below stayed a consistent 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 degree Celsius, and perfectly sour. Here's what makes fermented foods truly exceptional in a survival scenario. They don't just survive, they times improve asterisk. The fermentation process actually multiplies vitamins B and C, which becomes absolutely crucial when fresh citrus is a distant memory and scurvy is a very real threat. Think about it, a food that not only preserves itself but actively enhances its nutritional value. That's genius. And here's another little secret they don't tell you in polite company. Add a tablespoon of that kraut brine to your bean dishes, and you'll cut discomfort dramatically. It's a simple digestive aid that makes calorie-dense, but sometimes gassy, legumes much more palatable and useful. These bubbling crocks aren't just about food, they're about gut health, immunity, and making sure every calorie counts, especially when you can't afford to waste any. This is knowledge that turns simple vegetables into a cornerstone of resilience. Number 4. Dehydrated leather and jerky. Fourth, dehydration. This is where you really start seeing the ingenuity of our ancestors, turning perishable goods into lightweight, nutrient-dense provisions. Picture sun-dried apple rings hanging on broomsticks across the kitchen, beans threaded on strings like popcorn garlands, or venison strips, painted with salt, pepper, and a drizzle of maple, drying slowly. The principle is straightforward. Once moisture drops below 15%, bacteria essentially throw in the towel. They can't thrive, they can't multiply, and your food remains stable. My grandmother, ever resourceful, would slice tomatoes paper thin, lay them on window screens, and in 2 days, she had tomato chips. These weren't for snacking, though I'm sure someone tried. She'd crumble them into winter stews, adding an incredible umami depth that you just can't get from a fresh tomato out of season. It's about concentrated flavor and nutrition in a tiny package. And then there's pemmican, the ultimate trail bar. This isn't some granola bar you buy at the grocery store. This is a survival legend. A mixture of dried meat, often pounded to a powder, rendered fat, and dried berries, pemmican's calorie density rivals modern energy gels, but it keeps for decades. Decades. Think about that. You could literally feed your great-grandchildren with a batch of properly made pemmican. It's the ultimate example of maximizing energy per ounce, a critical factor when every pound you carry matters. No fancy dehydrator? No problem. Use your car dashboard on a hot day. Seriously. Crack the windows just a bit so the steam escapes, and rotate your trays every hour or so. The enclosed space acts like a solar oven, gently drawing out moisture, or build a simple drying rack out of old screens and lumber. This isn't about expensive equipment, it's about understanding the principles of airflow, heat, and humidity. Dehydration is about transforming bulk into essence, creating provisions that are not only shelf-stable, but incredibly efficient for storage and transport. It's the ultimate grab-and-go survival food, developed long before anyone dreamed of plastic packaging. Number 5. Smokehouse Gold. Fifth, smoked ham and bacon. This isn't just about flavor, though the flavor is undeniably incredible. This is about deep, lasting preservation. Hardwood smoke, particularly from woods like hickory or apple, deposits phenols onto the meat. These compounds are natural antiseptics, stunting microbes, while the flavor blooms into something truly magnificent. My great-granddad, a man who believed in doing things right, built a tiny log hut specifically for smoking. He'd start a smoldering hickory fire, so cool it wouldn't cook the meat, then let it ride for days, sometimes weeks. The secret was low heat and constant, clean smoke. Over time, the ham would develop a glossy, mahogany-colored shell, a thick, protective bark that sealed the inside. Once finished, these hams didn't go into a fridge, they hung in the attic until the flies disappeared. That wasn't just a quaint tradition, it was nature's sign that the cure had taken, that the meat was safe and ready. A single, properly smoked ham could feed a family all winter, providing not just protein but a source of fat and, crucially, morale. And when the meat was gone, the bone-seasoned beans well into spring, extracting every last bit of value. You don't need a log hut to do this today, though if you have one, more power to you. A kettle grill with a maze of hardwood pellets or a dedicated smoker can achieve similar results. The key is to keep the temperatures under 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius, for cold smoking, and let that smoke work its magic for 8 hours or more. Once done, wrap it in cheesecloth and hang it in a cool, dry pantry. No fridge needed. This isn't just about preserving meat. It's about a connection to a culinary heritage, a process that imbues food with a depth of flavor and a longevity that modern methods often miss. It's about turning a perishable commodity into a long-term asset. Number 6. Salt-cured bricks. This is where we get into truly ancient, almost archaeological methods of preservation. Picture pork shoulders, or even whole fish, buried in a wooden barrel of coarse salt, like fossils in white gravel. It sounds extreme, but the principle is elegantly simple and incredibly effective. Salt, through the process of osmosis, ruthlessly yanks water out of the meat, creating a desert where bacteria simply cannot survive. They check out. The meat shrinks, firms up, and often turns a deep, rich wine color. Now, you can't just cook this straight out of the barrel. It would be inedible. Before cooking, you need to soak it overnight, sometimes with multiple changes of water, to mellow the saltiness. Then, you can simmer it with beans, or use it to flavor greens. My grandmother had a twist that elevated this method. She'd layer a fresh leaf of sage between every 2 inches of meat. The herbs would hitchhike on the salt, perfuming the roast with their earthy aroma. It's a small detail, but it speaks to the thoughtfulness and care that went into these methods. The shelf life? Years. As long as the brine stays syrupy and the meat remains submerged, it's good. If the brine thins out, you just add more salt and stir it with a clean stick. No freezer, no problem. This method was the backbone of long-distance trade and military provisioning for centuries. It's a testament to how a single, readily available commodity salt can be transformed into a powerful tool for food security. In a world without reliable refrigeration, understanding how to salt-cure meat is not just a skill, it's a superpower. It ensures that valuable protein doesn't go to waste, turning it into a shelf-stable resource that can feed families through the leanest times. Number 7. Confit comfort. This sounds fancy, doesn't it? French even. But at its heart, confit is a brutally practical, incredibly delicious preservation method. Duck legs, slow-poached until meltingly tender in their own rendered fat, then submerged completely in that same fat in crocks. Why fat? Because fat is the original oxygen barrier. It creates an anaerobic environment, meaning no air, no oxygen, and thus, no way for most spoilage bacteria to thrive. Stored in the cool, stable environment of a root cellar or even just a cool pantry, that meat stays tender and perfectly preserved for 6 months, sometimes longer. To serve, you simply scrape off the solidified fat, gently warm the confit, and then crisp the skin in a cast iron pan until it's golden and crackly. And there you have it. A dish of luxurious, tender meat when the world outside feels anything but. It's not just sustenance, It's a morale booster, a reminder that even in challenging times, good food can bring comfort and joy. And the rendered fat? Oh, that's liquid gold. It becomes the base for frying potatoes, for sautéing vegetables, or for sealing jars of shredded meat. This is the essence of waste nothing, want nothing. Every single part is utilized, maximized for flavor and utility. While duck confit is the classic, you can apply the same principle to pork, chicken, or even certain vegetables. It's a method that turns a perishable item into a long-term delicacy, a testament to the ingenuity of preserving food not just for survival, but for enjoyment. It's a way to ensure that even when resources are scarce, you can still enjoy a taste of luxury. Number 8. Icebox cache. The ice harvest, before electricity became ubiquitous, before everyone had a humming refrigerator in their kitchen, people relied on ice, and not just a few cubes from a tray. Men would saw 100-pound blocks of ice from frozen ponds in winter, often using specialized tools and incredible strength. These massive blocks were then packed into sawdust-insulated ice houses, which were essentially giant, super-insulated coolers designed to keep ice frozen well into summer. From these ice houses, icemen would make weekly deliveries, bringing fresh blocks to homes. An icebox in the kitchen was a wooden cupboard, often lined with zinc, designed to hold a block of ice. That single block could last a week, keeping milk at a consistent 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees Celsius, and preventing other perishables from spoiling. My grandfather, a man who understood the true value of things, often paid the iceman with a jar of pickled beets or a side of smoked bacon. Barter at its finest, a direct exchange of labor and preserved goods. Now, we might not be harvesting ice from ponds today, but the principle is still incredibly relevant. If you have a freezer, fill plastic jugs or old milk cartons with water and freeze them solid. When the power inevitably flickers and dies, you can move these homemade ice blocks into coolers. A single gallon-sized block of ice can keep a mini fridge under 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius, for 2 days, provided you limit how often you open it. It's a simple, low-tech way to extend the life of your perishable food during an outage, buying you precious time. It's about understanding the physics of cold and how to harness it, even without a grid. This is about making modern appliances work for you, even when their power source is gone, and extending the life of your fresh food for as long as possible. Number 9. Ninth, underground burial. This sounds primitive, almost like something out of a wilderness survival manual, and it is, but it's incredibly effective. In permafrost zones, where the ground is permanently frozen, entire animal carcasses went into pits lined with charcoal and moss, then covered with earth. The ground stayed a consistent 28 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Celsius, even in May, preserving meat for astonishing lengths of time. This isn't just theory, it's how indigenous populations have survived for millennia. But you don't need permafrost to make this work. Root vegetables love the same treatment. Take a 5-gallon bucket, drill some drainage holes in the bottom, drop it into a prepared hole in your garden, and fill it with your root crops. Cover them with straw for insulation, and then place a scrap of tin or wood over the top to keep out moisture and pests. When the snow melts and the ground thaws, your dinner will still be crisp, often tasting better than anything you bought in a store. It's the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it preservation method for certain items. A word of caution, though, from personal experience: mark the spot with a stick. Seriously, forget where you buried your treasure, and you'll be feeding archaeologists in a few centuries. This method leverages the Earth's natural, stable temperatures to create a passive, long-term storage solution. It's about working times with time's nature, not against it, and understanding that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most robust. It's a reminder that the land itself can be your pantry, providing sustenance even when all other systems fail. If any of these ancient yet incredibly relevant survival foods just landed on your must-try list, do me a favor, tap that like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to more people who'd rather chew history than watch their fridge die a slow, agonizing death. While you're at it, subscribe and ring the bell. Next week, we're turning a ham hock and a handful of beans into a feast that costs less than a drive-through coffee. Because real value isn't about what you spend, it's about what you can create. Our grandparents didn't need Wi-Fi to keep dinner safe. They needed know-how. They understood that resilience wasn't something you bought in a pre-packaged kit, it was something you cultivated, a skill set you honed. 9 simple, low-tech food cellared crops, jewel-bright jars, bubbling kraut, leather-dry jerky, smokehouse ham, salt-cured bricks, silky confit, ice-chilled milk, and earth-chilled roots gave them a level of food security and psychological peace that many of us, caught in the web of modern convenience, have completely forgotten. They weren't preppers in the modern sense, they were just living. They were adapting, innovating, and ensuring their families had food on the table, no matter what the world threw at them. And that's when it clicked for me. This isn't just about food, it's about a mindset. It's about understanding that the systems we rely on are fragile, and that true security comes from within, from the skills you possess and the knowledge you wield. Pick one method this month, just one, master it, learn the nuances, understand the science, feel the satisfaction of self-sufficiency. Stack a small stash, not just of food, but of confidence. When the next storm rolls through, when the grid flickers and the trucks stop rolling, you won't be queuing for FEMA water. You'll be slicing smoked bacon or pulling crisp carrots from your backyard cellar, while the neighbors wonder how you made breakfast smell like tomorrow will be just fine. Because in a world of uncertainty, the ability to feed yourself and your family is the ultimate currency and the ultimate peace of mind.